Breaking news has just detonated across the Bravo universe, and what you're about to hear isn't drama, isn't a storyline, and definitely isn't something anyone could have scripted. Because tonight, under the blinding studio lights and rolling cameras, a betrayal so explosive, so vile, so reality-shattering unfolded that the entire cast, the producers, and even the audience at home froze as if the world had stopped spinning. It all began when Gizelle Bryant stood up during the reunion taping, her voice trembling but her eyes locked with a cold confidence. No one expected what came next, her confession, her bombshell, her dagger straight through Wendy's life. In front of millions, Gizelle announced the unthinkable. She's pregnant, and the father is Wendy's husband, Edward. Gasps, screams, chaos, none of it could soften the blow. Wendy didn't just react. She broke. She shattered. She collapsed under the weight of a betrayal she never saw coming. And just when people thought it had to be a lie, Gizelle pulled out the one thing no one could argue with: DNA proof. Tonight, we aren't witnessing drama. We're witnessing devastation, raw, unfiltered, and irreversible. And this is only the beginning. The moment Gizelle's words hit the air, something shifted in the studio. Something invisible but heavy, like every molecule in the room suddenly realized it was standing in the center of a disaster it couldn't escape. For a full second, no one breathed. Not Wendy, not the cast, not the producers, not even the camera operators whose job was to never, ever stop moving. The silence wasn't calm. It was violent. It crackled like electricity before a storm. Wendy blinked once, slowly, as if her brain was fighting to translate a language she had never heard before. Pregnant. Edward. DNA. The words floated around her like smoke, suffocating, poisonous, impossible. Her hands, resting on her lap moments ago, now clenched with a tremor she couldn't control. Somewhere behind her, someone whispered no way, but it sounded far, almost underwater. Gizelle didn't sit down. She didn't look ashamed. She didn't even blink. She just stared, her chest rising and falling like she had finally released a secret she'd been holding onto for far too long. The cast watched her like she had turned into something unrecognizable. Not a co-star. Not a rival. A threat. Andy opened his mouth, but no words came. His cue cards slipped from his fingers and scattered on the floor like fallen leaves. He wasn't the host anymore. He was just as stunned as everyone else. His lips parted again, trying to form some kind of reality check sentence, but all he managed was a shaky, "Gizelle, are you saying?" "I'm pregnant," she repeated, slower this time, louder, each syllable striking the room like a hammer. "And the father is Edward." Wendy inhaled sharply, a sound so small but so filled with pain that several cast members flinched. She looked at Gizelle with eyes that weren't angry at first, just confused, hurt, terrified. As if she needed someone, anyone, to tell her this was a sick joke. A prank. A storyline twist gone too far. But no one spoke. Not one person. Gizelle reached into a glossy white folder and pulled out a paper with clinical markings, numbers, percentages, evidence. "This is the DNA report," she said, tapping the corner with her manicured fingertip. 99.7, there's no room for doubt. The studio erupted. Robin gasped so loudly her mic crackled. Mia stumbled backwards into her seat. Candiace's hand flew to her mouth as tears filled her eyes instantly. Not for Gizelle, not for Edward, but for the woman sitting inches away whose entire world had just been ripped open. Wendy didn't look at the paper. She didn't need to. She was staring ahead, her eyes unfocused, body frozen, like her soul had separated from her flesh. Her chest rose and fell in short, panicked breaths, like she was drowning in air. "Wendy!" Andy whispered, stepping toward her. "Wendy, look at me." She didn't. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her throat tightened. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. She was blinking too fast, as if trying to hold back tears that refused to stay in place. A thin line of mascara trembled at the corner of her eye, threatening to break. Then she finally spoke. "How long?" Her voice was small, fragile, shaking. "How long have you known?" Gizelle hesitated. Not long, only half a second. But it was enough. Enough for everyone to feel the truth before she even said it. "A few months," she replied quietly. Gasps again. Louder this time. Wendy shook her head slowly, tears forming but not falling yet. "A few months," she repeated, the words trembling with disbelief. She turned slightly, as if trying to find someone who could tell her this wasn't happening. "Wendy," Candiace whispered, reaching out. But Wendy pulled away, not angrily, but helplessly, like her skin couldn't handle the weight of another person's touch. Her breath hitched. Her chest quivered. This wasn't a cry anyone expected. This wasn't reality show yelling. This was silent hurt, deep and raw. Then the tears fell. Not dramatic tears. Not loud tears. Quiet ones. They slipped down her cheeks as her lips trembled and her shoulders began to shake. She tried to hide her face, but her hands couldn't even lift properly. They hovered, shaking, before falling again. The room dimmed, not literally, but emotionally, as if everyone's heartbeat dropped at the same time. No one moved. No one fidgeted. No one dared to breathe too loudly, because they were witnessing something real. Not drama. Not shade. Not a storyline. A woman breaking. Right there, on camera. And this was only the first fall. For a moment, it felt like the entire studio was suspended in slow motion. The cameras kept rolling because no one had the courage, or the authority, to yell cut. Not when a marriage was collapsing. Not when a woman was unraveling in real time. Wendy wiped her face with trembling fingers, smearing black mascara across her cheek, but she didn't care. That was the part that hit everyone hardest. Wendy always cared. About her image. About her composure. About staying strong, polished, untouchable. But right now, she looked like a woman who had forgotten she was being filmed at all. She looked human, broken, exhausted. Gizelle finally lowered her eyes, but the damage was already done. Her shoulders stiffened, as if bracing herself for the backlash she knew was coming. Yet she didn't back down. She didn't apologize. She just stood there in a silence that felt almost cruel. Andy approached Wendy again, slow and cautious, as if she was standing at the edge of a dangerous cliff. "Do you want a minute?" he asked gently, voice trembling. Wendy didn't answer. She was staring at the floor now, but she wasn't seeing it. Her mind was 1,000 miles away, sorting through memories she once trusted, late-night talks with Edward, whispered promises, family photos, mornings where he kissed her forehead. Every moment she replayed now felt like a lie. Then, like the universe wasn't cruel enough, the studio doors clicked open. A producer hurried toward Andy, whispering urgently into his ear. Andy's face twisted in confusion, then fear. He glanced at Wendy, then back at the producer. "Should we stop?" Andy asked. "No," the producer said. "We can't. Not yet." But it was too late, because another voice echoed from the hallway, muffled, angry, urgent. "Where is she? Move!" Wendy's blood ran cold. She recognized that voice. Even after all the betrayal, she recognized it instantly. Edward. Wendy flinched so hard that Candice jumped beside her. The cast members looked around in panic as heavy footsteps approached the door. "Is he serious right now?" Mia whispered. Robin's eyes widened. "Why is he here?" Wendy shook her head violently. "No, no, no, no." Her hands covered her ears as if the sound itself burned her. "He can't be here. Not now. Not like this." Security rushed toward the main entrance, but Edward pushed harder against it, rattling the door in its frame. "Wendy, open the door." His voice cracked with desperation. "We need to talk." Wendy's breath spiraled into fast, shallow gasps. She backed away from the sound, her body trembling uncontrollably. "Don't let him in," she whispered. Then louder, higher, almost childlike. "Don't let him in. Please don't let him in." The panic in her voice rippled through the room like a shockwave. Candice wrapped her arms around her, trying to steady her. "Wendy, it's okay. You don't have to talk to him." But Wendy was shaking too hard to listen. Edward slammed the door again. "Wendy, please." Security blocked it with their shoulders, bracing themselves. "Sir, step back." Inside the studio, the cast stared in horror. No one had seen Wendy like this. Raw, terrified, stripped of every layer of composure she usually carried like armor. The lights felt too bright, the air too thin, the tension so thick it was suffocating. Then Wendy snapped. She stood, abruptly, almost violently, her hair falling into her face, tears streaming. She pointed toward the door with a shaking hand. "Tell him to leave," she demanded. "Tell him to leave now." Her voice cracked on the last word, and the sound was so heartbreaking even Gizelle looked away, her confidence faltering for the first time. Andy moved closer. "Wendy, we're going to protect you. He can't get in." But Wendy didn't hear him. She was staring ahead, her eyes wild, drowning in betrayal and fear. In that moment, the cameras captured something no script, no producer, no network could ever manufacture. The exact second Wendy's world split into two. Before this moment, and after it. And the after was only getting darker. Edward's voice kept pounding against the studio walls, each syllable slicing through the air like a blade Wendy couldn't dodge. The more he shouted, the more she seemed to shrink, not physically, but emotionally, as if every memory she had ever built with him was collapsing inward, crushing her from the inside. Her breath wouldn't steady. Her mind wouldn't stop spinning. And the cameras, those cold, unblinking eyes, captured every second of her unraveling. Producers swarmed the room now, whispering instructions into headsets, signaling security, waving frantically at the crew to stay calm. But nothing was calm. This wasn't a reunion anymore. It was a disaster site. And in the center of it stood Wendy, shaking, broken, fighting for the last threads of her sanity. Candice held onto Wendy's arm, grounding her as best she could. "Hey, listen to me. You're safe in here. He's not getting through." But Wendy couldn't hear her. Her focus was locked on the rattling door as if it were a monster clawing to get inside. "He knew," she whispered, voice hollow. "He knew the whole time, and he let me walk into this." Gizelle shifted uncomfortably but didn't say a word. Her earlier boldness had evaporated. Now she looked like someone realizing the consequences of lighting a match in a room soaked with gasoline. Robin watched her with disbelief and disgust, shaking her head slowly as if silently asking, "Why would you do this here?" A producer stepped toward Andy. "We need to shut everything down. This is escalating too far." But Andy didn't move. His eyes were locked on Wendy, on the storm unraveling inside her. He knew Bravo had pushed limits before, but this was beyond any line they'd ever crossed. "This is too real," he murmured under his breath. "Way too real." Then the door boomed again, harder this time. "Wendy, let me explain," Edward shouted. The desperation in his voice wasn't soft or apologetic. It was frantic, erratic, like a man whose lies were collapsing around him. Wendy flinched again and covered her ears. "Why is he here? Why would he come here after what he did? Why now?" Her voice cracked, rising in panic. "He wants control," Mia said quietly, almost to herself. "He wants to spin this before the world sees it." Candice clenched her jaw. "Well, he's too late." Wendy's legs buckled slightly, and she gripped the back of a chair for support. Her tears were silent but constant now, streaming down her face like grief that refused to pause. She whispered something no one expected. "Did he ever love me, or was it all a lie?" The room went still again. It wasn't a dramatic question. It was raw, whispered directly from a place deeper than heartbreak. Even the camera operators lowered their lenses, unable to watch a woman's heart shatter in real time. Before anyone could respond, the producer who had earlier pulled Andy aside stepped toward Wendy cautiously. "Wendy, there's something else. Something you need to know." "No," Candice snapped immediately. "Not now. She's had enough." But the producer shook his head. "It's already happening. She should hear it from us, not the internet." Wendy looked up, eyes swollen, lips trembling. "What now?" she whispered. The producer hesitated, then exhaled. Edward didn't just know about the pregnancy, he also received the DNA results weeks ago. The words detonated like a grenade. Wendy staggered backward as if the air itself had shoved her. Her knees gave out slightly, and she clutched the armrest to stay upright. He knew," she whispered. "All this time." The producer nodded slowly. Wendy let out a sound, quiet at first, then deeper, raw, almost primal. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a cry. It was grief tearing through her chest like fire. "How could he?" she choked out. "How could he sleep next to me? Eat dinner with me? Laugh with me? Touch me? Look at me like nothing was wrong?" No one had an answer. The door pounded again, but Wendy didn't react this time. Something inside her had gone still, frighteningly still, like a flame snuffed out. Her tears stopped. Her body stopped shaking. Her breathing steadied, not calmly, but coldly. She straightened her posture slowly, almost mechanically, as if gathering the shattered pieces of her dignity one last time. Then she turned toward the nearest camera, her eyes red but unblinking. "Let the world see," she said quietly, voice steady despite the devastation. "Let them see everything he hid from me." And with that single sentence, the room understood. This wasn't fear anymore. It was the beginning of war. Before you scroll, before you move on, before this moment fades into the chaos of your feed, stop right here. Because what you just witnessed isn't a storyline. It isn't gossip. It isn't entertainment. It's the collapse of a woman's entire world, exposed under blinding studio lights while millions watched. Wendy didn't just shed tears. She shed trust, safety, dignity, and the illusion that her family was untouchable. And if any part of her pain hit you in the chest, even for a second, then you owe her this moment. So take a breath. Really take it. Now ask yourself, did she deserve this? Did any woman deserve to learn the DNA of her husband's betrayal on camera, surrounded by people who gasped instead of protecting her? Did she deserve to be ambushed by the two people who should have valued her humanity, her husband and the network she helped build? If your answer is no, then don't just feel her pain. Stand with her. Hit the like button right now, not for the drama, but for the woman who stood in the center of it with her heart in pieces. Drop a comment for Wendy, even if it's just a single word of support. Your voice matters more than Bravo's edit, more than the headlines, more than the noise swirling around her life. Share this video so the truth reaches the people who only saw clips and rumors instead of the full reality of her devastation. And if you want justice, if you want the next chapter, if you want to follow the fight that's only just beginning, then subscribe. Because this isn't the end of Wendy's story. It's the moment the world finally starts listening.